friends, how are you doing today? And welcome to Crimes with Cole. So how are you guys doing today? I hope you all are doing amazing. I hope you all are being safe out there. I hope you all have enjoyed your week so far. So in today's case, today we are back at it again with another Black Widow case. Completely driven by greed, this woman was destroying every man that came in her path, including her own son. This is the case of Judy Buenoano, the Black Widow of Florida. And there is just something about these type of women that I find fascinating. Maybe it's the fact that nobody questions them for years upon years, and yet something catastrophic keeps happening to them. It's just wild to me. Just wild. But Judy Buenoano was born as Judith Welty on April 4th, 1943 in Quahana, Texas. I may have butchered that. She lived with her mother and father and her two older siblings and a baby brother. Judy's mother ended up passing away when she was 4 years old. And after her mother passed away, she and her baby brother, Robert, were sent to live with their grandparents. But after Judy's father had remarried, the two children then moved back in with their father, who moved to New Mexico to be with his new wife and her two children. Judy claims this is when her life had changed. Her father and her new stepmother were horrible to her. They starved her, they abused her, and essentially forced her to be their slave. And at the age of 14 years old, Judy was sent to a juvenile facility for 2 months for attacking her father, her stepmother, and her two stepbrothers. When the 2 months were up, Judy chose to go to a reformatory school until she was 18. And I don't know about you, but I think that says a lot, considering reformatory schools aren't necessarily a walk in the park, if you get my drift. After graduating in 1960, Judy became a nursing assistant, and in 1961, she had a little boy and named him Michael. A year later, she married a man named James Goodyear. He was an Air Force officer and ended up adopting little Michael. And the three of them moved to Orlando, Florida, where they later had 2 more children, a little girl and a little boy. And this is where they would raise their family. After 1971, James came home from being on tour in Vietnam. And he had strange, mysterious symptoms that no one could quite pinpoint what was causing them. He was hospitalized, but later on ended up passing away. Judy, being his wife, was the beneficiary on his insurance policy and was granted his payout. Later that same year, Judy's house mysteriously caught on fire, and she collected the insurance money from that. By 1973, Judy found herself wrapped in the arms of a new man named Bobby Joe Morris. With her greed still consuming her, she followed Bobby Joe to Colorado in 1977, and the couple lived there with her 3 children. Now, a few months after the move, Bobby Joe fell sick and was hospitalized. Similar to her first husband, the doctors were unable to pinpoint what exactly was causing Bobby Joe to get sick and have these symptoms he was having. He was released from the hospital and ended up collapsing at home and had to be readmitted. Bobby Joe had passed away a few days later, and Judy was paid out for the insurance policy she had taken out on Bobby. Her next victim was her beloved son, Michael. Michael was in the U.S. Army and stationed in Fort Benning, Georgia. Before arriving to base, he stopped to visit his mother, who was now back in Florida. When he arrived to Fort Benning, he started showing strange symptoms that were once again unexplainable. The doctors on base started running tests to find out what was wrong, and they discovered high levels of arsenic in his blood. A few weeks later, Michael's muscles and his arms and his legs had atrophied to the point that he could not use his hands and required metal braces on his legs to walk. Because of this, Michael was discharged from the Army and returned home to his mother's house as he needed a full-time caregiver. In May of 1980, 3 years after Bobby Joe's death, Judy carried on life and took her boys canoeing on Florida's East River. After the canoe had tipped, Judy and James were able to swim to shore, but because of Michael's arms and legs, he was unable to swim and ended up drowning. After the drowning, the Army paid out $20,000 for Michael's military life insurance, and since he wasn't married, his mother received the money. Wyatt family did not question her, why her own son did not say something to her and allowed her to convince him that he should go canoeing, or why James didn't even say something like, it might be unsafe for Michael to go canoeing with us, is just beyond me. I mean, knowing that Michael had minimal ability to use his limbs and he had metal braces on his legs, it's a shame what greed makes someone do. For the next 2 years, Judy took the money she had gotten and opened up her own beauty salon. This is when she met a businessman named John Gentry. The two ended up dating and got engaged in October of 1982. This is when Judy had convinced John to take a life insurance policy out, which he agreed on doing. The policy was worth $500,000. Judy also convinced John to take these special vitamins. And by December of 1982, John had to be hospitalized due to feeling so horrible. He had uncontrollable vomiting and diarrhea, and during his hospital stay, John did not take these special vitamins and started to feel better. So he was released and never once questioned if the vitamins had anything to do with his sudden, unexplainable illness. However, a few months later, John was at the liquor store when suddenly his car blew up. It just exploded out of nowhere. The police were called and started investigating the car explosion, naturally questioning Judy. They noticed some discrepancies in her background. When they dug into the life between Judy and John, they discovered that the special vitamins John was taking happened to contain arsenic, and discovered the wire and tape that matched the wire and tape used for the car bomb on John's car. This started making the investigators question how all of these catastrophic events have happened, and they are all surrounding one person, Judy. They had exhumed Michael's body, her first husband, James Goodyear, and her ex-boyfriend, Bobby Joe Morris. Each man had traces of arsenic poisoning in their system. James Goodyear's body was still nicely intact after 15 years because of the arsenic in his system at the time of his death. In 1984, Judy was convicted for the murders of her son Michael and attempted murder for John. She was later convicted for the murder of her husband James, along with multiple counts of grand theft and arson. It is highly suspected that she had something to do with a few other deaths of those that came across her path, but by the time she was already convicted for the murder of Michael and James and the attempted murder for John, which landed her on death row. So it wasn't a priority to the courts to convict her because she was already sentenced to death. On March 30th, 1998, Judy was executed by electric chair. She was 54 years old and had collected over $240,000 by the time she was caught. She was the first woman executed in Florida since 1848 and never admitted to any killings and had no final words. This is a prime example of when greed gets the best of people. But was it worth it all in the end? Was the $200-something thousand worth losing your own child over? But what do you guys think? When do you think she became so greedy and allowed nothing to get in her way? This is all I have for today. Please remember to be safe. And until next time, I will see you then. Bye.